Welcome to the Geostrategic Podcast.
Hello and welcome back. It is great to have you with us for another deep dive into the stories that are actually shaping the world, not just the ones filling up your feed. We are so glad you're here. The $14 billion dream is officially dead. Boeing just confirmed they're walking away from Indonesia's F-15EX deal, and the shockwaves are hitting Washington hard. Is American influence in Southeast Asia finally eroding? With the U.S. out and the JF-17 Thunder now on the table, Jakarta is on the verge of a historic pivot toward China. Is the Eagle 2 loss about to become Beijing's biggest win? We're breaking down the fallout, so hit like, share, and subscribe to stay ahead of the Indo-Pacific power shift. But before we dive in, I need to hear from you. Is Indonesia making a genius move for its sovereignty or massive strategic mistake? Don't hold back. Drop your wildest theories and opinions in the comments right now. Let's get the debate started.
That is quite the opener, isn't it?
Well, it feels like a big one.
Oh, it is. But honestly, the hyperbole is warranted today. This isn't just about a canceled receipt for some airplanes. We are looking at a fundamental shift in how power is brokered in the Indo-Pacific.
It certainly feels that way. When I first saw the headline, my initial reaction was pretty standard. Okay, another defense contract falls. It happens in that industry all the time. But looking at the stack of sources you brought in today, I mean, the financial breakdowns, the diplomatic cables, the sheer scale of the money involved, this feels different.
It is.
This feels like a turning point. So our mission today is to look past the business deal and, figure out what this means for the map of Asia.
Precisely. We need to understand why the eagle has landed scenario turned into the eagle has left the building, and why that vacuum is being filled by players that Washington is very, very uncomfortable with.
Right.
We're talking about a move that could redefine the security architecture of the region for 20 years.
So let's start with the hard news. What exactly happened? Because back in 2023, this deal looked like a sure thing.
It did.
I remember seeing the photos defense ministers shaking hands, big smiles, memorandums of understanding signed. It looked like a done deal. What changed?
So the change was confirmed officially at the Singapore Airshow 2026. Bernd, who is the Vice President of Business Development for Boeing Defense, he didn't really mince words.
Yeah.
He stated on the record that the F-15EX sale to Indonesia is no longer an active campaign.
No longer an active campaign. That is polite corporate speak for we are taking our ball and going home.
Effectively, yes. And you're right to bring up 2023. Back then, that MOUs, the Memorandum of Understanding it, was signed while U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin was actually in Jakarta.
So high-level stuff.
Oh, yeah. This was seen as this massive strategic pillar. Indonesia was going to buy 24 of these F-15EX Eagle ties.
And just so we're clear, these aren't just updated F-15s from the 80s that you see in old movies. These are the Eagle ties.
The latest and greatest.
Massive payload, incredible range. We'll get into the specs in a bit, but walking away from 24 of these is a big deal.
It's a huge deal. The package was valued at around $13.9 billion US dollars.
Wow.
That includes the jets, training, weapons,
the
whole ecosystem. But, between 2023 and 2026, reality set in.
Okay, let's unpack that reality, because usually when these things fail, it's political. Someone insulted someone else or a treaty got broken. But reading through the reports, this looks like a math problem.
A really, really bad one.
A really, really bad math problem.
It was a fiscal collision. You have to look at the numbers. The deal was nearly $14 billion. But if you look at Indonesia's estimated defense budget for 2026, the entire budget for the whole country.
It's for everything.
For everything. It's only about $9.5 billion.
Wait, let me just pause there. I want to make sure I heard that right. The price of this one package of planes was roughly 150% of the nation's entire annual defense budget.
That's the scale of the disconnect. And remember, that $9.5 billion isn't just sitting there waiting to buy planes.
Right.
That pays for the Navy, the Army, the Marines, fuel for the trucks, salaries for the soldiers, base maintenance, everything.
So mathematically, this was dead on arrival unless they got some massive loan structure or something.
Which they were banking on, but it didn't materialize. And to make matters worse, while Boeing was negotiating and waiting for the credit check to clear, the French swooped in. Dassault, to the French aviation giant, secured a deal for 42 Rafale jets. That contract was worth about $8.1 billion.
So France basically swiped the credit card before the U.S. could run the transaction.
That is a very accurate way to put it.
Right.
That $8.1 billion purchase absorbed almost all of Indonesia's capital expenditure capacity.
Been gone.
There was simply no room left for another mega contract. The wallet was empty.
The sources also mention a bureaucratic wall. It seems like it's not just that they didn't have the cash in the wallet, it's that the wallet was glued shut by their own internal processes.
That's the procurement ecosystem problem. Jakarta has a disconnect between its aspirations. We want to be a top-tier regional power and its ability to actually execute these complex contracts.
The will is there, but the way isn't.
Exactly. You have budget constraints colliding with bureaucratic slowdowns. Boeing looked at this after 3 years and realized the financing wasn't coming. They decided to stop chasing a ghost and focus on customers who can actually pay.
Okay, so on the surface, Indonesia is broke, or at least tapped out on credit. But let's play devil's advocate here.
Go for it.
If the United States really wanted this influence, if they really wanted to lock Indonesia down as an ally against rising tensions in the region, couldn't they have just made it work?
You mean like better financing?
Yeah, subsidized it, given them a discount.
That brings us to the American problem. Buying weapons from the United States is not like buying a car. You aren't just dealing with a company, you are dealing with the U.S. government.
You're talking about FMS, foreign military sales.
Right, the FMS mechanism. It is designed to ensure that U.S. weapons only go to responsible actors who align with U.S. interests. It's a rigorous process.
Which means?
It means long approval cycles and intense U.S. congressional oversight.
And Congress usually has a lot of opinions when it comes to who gets the big guns.
They certainly do.
Yeah.
And specifically regarding Indonesia, there is significant political sensitivity in Washington regarding human rights, particularly concerning internal security operations in regions like Papua.
Right. The Leahy laws come into play here, preventing aid or sales to units implicated in rights violations. So every time a deal comes up, Congress can pause and say, wait, we are worried about how these might be used, and the whole thing stalls.
Exactly. For a country like Indonesia, which prizes its sovereignty and strict non-alignment, that feels like interference.
Like a lecture.
It feels like a lecture. It makes the U.S. an unpredictable partner. You don't know if the spare parts will keep coming if the political winds shift in Washington.
And Boeing sees this.
Boeing sees this too. They aren't just quitting because of the money. They are shifting resources to safer bets.
Safer meaning treaty allies.
Countries with predictable budgets and total political alignment. Boeing is looking at the $65 billion Asia-Pacific market and saying, we will focus on Japan, on South Korea, on Australia.
Customers who can actually sign the check.
And clear the political hurdles without Congress blocking it.
So Boeing is being pragmatic. But let's talk about what this means for the pilots in the cockpit. Because Indonesia is getting those 42 French Rafales.
They are.
Is the loss of the F-15EX really that big of a deal operationally, or is it just a different flavor of jet? Like choosing Pepsi over Coke?
No. It is a significant loss in capability. It's more like choosing a rally car versus a semi-truck. To understand why, you have to visualize the map of Indonesia.
It's massive. It's not a landmass. It's water with islands scattered in it.
It's the world's largest archipelago state, 17,000 islands. It spans a distance roughly equivalent to London to Baghdad.
Wow.
To defend that, you don't just need a fighter, you need range. You need endurance.
And the F-15EX is the king of range.
It's a long-range, heavy platform. It carries a massive payload of missiles. We're talking about 12 air-to-air missiles plus air-to-ground ordnance. But more importantly, it has the fuel capacity to patrol the Natuna Sea and the exclusive economic zone.
Which is where the friction with China usually happens.
Precisely. And it can stay there. It has loiter time.
It can hang around and say, I'm watching you.
Exactly. It can hang out in the fight. The Rafale is an excellent aircraft, very advanced omni-role, but it's smaller. It doesn't have the sheer brute force range and payload capacity of the Eagle.
So this creates what the sources call a capability gap.
A big one. Without the F-15EX, Indonesia lacks that high-tech deterrence layer for deep maritime strikes. They can defend their bases, but projecting power out to the edge of their territory becomes much, much harder.
It sounds like they are trying to police a continent-sized ocean with a fleet that's, well, a bit confused. The sources referred to the Indonesian Air Force, the TNI-AU, as having a zoo fleet. I loved that term.
It is a logistical nightmare. Just picture this. You are the head of maintenance for the Indonesian Air Force. You walk into the hangar. In one bay, you have American F-16s that use imperial measurements.
Yeah.
In the next, you have Russian Su-30s and Su-27s that use metric. Over here, South Korean FA-50s, and now you are dragging in French Rafale.
That sounds like a headache. You need different parts, different mechanics, different tools. I imagine an imperial wrench doesn't fit a metric Russian bolt.
It's wildly inefficient.
Yeah.
You have separate supply chains for every aircraft, separate training pipelines for pilots. Interoperability, getting these planes to talk to each other via data link, is almost impossible.
So the F-15EX was supposed to be the step towards standardizing.
It was supposed to clean up the zoo. It was supposed to anchor the fleet on a high-end Western standard.
And now that's gone.
Now that simplification is gone. They are stuck with this heterogeneous mix. And it might get even more mixed.
This is the part that I think is most fascinating and arguably the most concerning for Washington. The F-15 is out. The Rafale is in, but it's expensive.
Very.
So where does Jakarta turn for the rest of its needs? Because they still need planes to cover that massive map.
This is where the pivot comes in. The intro mentioned the JF-17 Thunder.
Which is a Pakistani jet, right?
It is manufactured in Pakistan, yes, but it is jointly developed with China. And this is the critical piece. Indonesia is reportedly looking at the JF-17 Thunder Block 3.
Why specifically the Block 3? Is that a major upgrade?
It's a huge leap. It includes an ASA radar,
Yeah.
an active electronically scanned array, which is the modern standard for seeing without being seen. But the real kicker is that it's compatible with China's PL-15 long-range air-to-air missiles.
The PL-15. That's the missile that has the U.S. Air Force really worried, isn't it?
Yes, because of the range.
It outranges most current Western missiles.
It does. So getting that capability is a big deal.
Yeah.
But honestly, for Indonesia, the main selling point isn't just the tech. It's the restriction-free profile.
No congressional oversight.
None. No lectures on human rights, no delays from Capitol Hill, no end-user monitoring where the U.S. checks how you use the plane.
It's a pure transaction.
You pay the money, you get the jet.
That must be incredibly appealing if you've just spent 3 years banging your head against the wall with Boeing and the U.S. State Department.
It is. The sources quote analysts calling it a pragmatic adaptation. If you can't buy the Porsche because the dealer demands a background check, a character reference, and a 3-year waiting period.
You go buy the reliable sedan down the street that takes cash.
And in this case, the sedan comes with some very advanced missiles.
But there's a risk there, isn't there? Buying a Chinese-Pakistani jet? That's not just buying a tool, it's buying a relationship.
It is.
You are inviting Chinese technicians onto your bases.
It completely changes the geostrategic landscape. This is the core of our mission today. This deal falling apart is an active erosion of U.S. influence.
Explain that mechanism. How does a failed sale translate to lost power?
Defense sales are never just about the hardware. They're diplomatic tethers. When you buy F-15s, you are buying a 30-year relationship with the U.S. Air Force. You need their parts. You need their upgrades. You send your pilots to train in America. You're ensuring your pilots speak the same language as American pilots, literally and tactically.
So by walking away, the U.S. is severing that tether. They're cutting the phone line.
Exactly. And the Southeast Asian nations, SEN, are watching. The perception being reinforced here is that access to Western jets is too dependent on alignment politics.
Right.
If you are in a treaty ally like Japan or Australia, you can't rely on the U.S. supply chain. It's too volatile.
So they diversify. They go multi-supplier.
Right. They start buying from everyone to protect themselves from U.S. procurement uncertainty. But here is the kicker. This benefits China enormously.
Because even if Indonesia doesn't buy a purely Chinese jet like the J-20, buying a Pakistani jet developed with China brings them into that orbit.
Yes. It integrates them into the Chinese logistical ecosystem. And operationally, the U.S. loses the chance to build that high-tech deterrence layer in the region.
So if there's a crisis.
In a crisis, if Indonesia had F-15EXs, those jets would be interoperable with U.S. assets. They could share data. They could fly wingmen. No, that capability is gone. You can't just link a JF-17 into a U.S. Navy data network. It doesn't work.
It creates a strategic gap in the messy middle of the Indo-Pacific, a black hole in the coverage map.
It weakens the collective deterrence against China's expanding presence in the South China Sea. It's a net loss for the U.S. security architecture.
It's ironic, isn't it? The U.S. wants to counter China in the region. That's the stated goal, a free and open Indo-Pacific. But its own bureaucracy prevented it from selling the very tool that would help do that.
It is the paradox of American power right now. The U.S. model of export is struggling in a competitive market. Washington demands total political alignment and moral vetting for its best weapons. But in the global South, in places like Indonesia, India, Brazil nations want the weapons, but they don't want the the political marriage.
They want to date, not get married.
And if the U.S. says marriage or nothing, these countries will find other partners who are fine with a casual fling.
Yeah.
And China is very happy to be that partner.
It's a massive gamble for Indonesia, too, though, shifting to a non-Western fleet that has to hurt their ability to work with their neighbors. Singapore flies American jets. Australia flies American jets.
Right.
Even the Philippines is looking at American tech.
It does isolate them operationally. It makes integrated response, like a joint patrol, to stop maritime coercion much harder. If your data links don't talk to each other, if your radios are encrypted differently, you aren't a team. You're just a crowd of planes flying in the same general direction.
And that's exactly what Beijing would prefer, a fractured, uncoordinated set of neighbors.
Precisely. Divide and conquer, or at least divide and dilute. If Indonesia is flying Chinese tech radars, they might be hesitant to share data with the U.S., and the U.S. will certainly be hesitant to share data with them. It builds a wall of mistrust.
So let's bring this home. What is the takeaway for our listener? We have a failed deal, a budget crisis in Jakarta, and a potential pivot to Chinese-Pakistani tech. Why should the average person care about this?
The takeaway is that commercial opportunities in the defense world are now being weighed heavily against political friction. For the listener, you have to realize that this isn't just about Indonesia. This is a signal.
A signal for what?
The failure of the F-15EX deal signals that the U.S. is struggling to use arms sales as a primary diplomatic tool in non-aligned Asia.
The arsenal of democracy is becoming a bit too exclusive for its own good.
It is becoming a velvet rope club. And the question is, if you keep the rope too tight, will you look outside one day and realize everyone has gone to a different party? We are seeing the limits of U.S. soft power when it hits the hard reality of budgets and sovereignty.
That is a sobering thought. We assume American tech is always the goal, that everyone wants the iPhone of fighter jets. But if you can't buy the iPhone, or if the Apple Store kicks you out,
You buy the Android.
you buy the Android. And eventually, the Android gets pretty good.
Which leads me to the provocative thought I want to leave everyone with.
Let's hear it.
We talk about strategic competition constantly. But consider this. If Washington continues to demand strict political alignment and human rights vetting for its hardware, will it eventually find itself with the absolute best weapons in the world, but absolutely no one left to buy them in the global south?
Wow.
Are we witnessing the moment where U.S. moral standards actually cost it the geopolitical game?
That is something to chew on. Is the moral high ground worth the loss of influence? Because once you lose that influence, you lose the ability to impact those moral standards anyway.
It's the multi-billion-dollar question. And right now, the answer seems to be trending away from Washington.
Well, on that note, we are going to wrap it up. This has been a fascinating look at how a single canceled contract, some signatures that didn't happen, can ripple out and change the map of the Pacific.
It's a reminder that the most important moves often happen in boardrooms, not battlefields.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for breaking this down with us.
My pleasure.
And to you, the listener, thank you for giving us your time. We know you have a lot of options, and we appreciate you diving deep with us. If you enjoyed this, please check out the other deep dives in our network. We have some great episodes coming up on AI warfare and the future of energy. Until next time, keep asking questions.
Stay curious.
See you in the next one.